Effigies of life-jacket-wearing migrants in boats have been placed on a village bonfire in Northern Ireland in a display condemned by critics as sickening and racist. The effigies have been placed on a loyalist bonfire, leading to condemnation and calls for the display to be removed before the pyre is lit. The display, on top of the bonfire in Moygashel, on the outskirts of Dungannon in County Tyrone, contains more than 12 life-size mannequins wearing life jackets. Below the boat are several placards, one reading, "Stop the boats," and another, "Veterans before refugees." The bonfire is one of approximately 300 set to be lit across Northern Ireland on the nights of July 10th and 11th, ahead of Protestant Loyal Order parades on July 12th. Moygashel has gained notoriety for its effigies celebrating the 12th in previous years. In 2024, the pile of wooden pallets was topped by a police car, after accusations of two-tier policing in the police service of Northern Ireland. The year before, the bonfire was topped by a large boat and a banner reading, "Moygashel says no to Irish seaboarder," referring to the unionist and loyalist community's opposition to post-Brexit trading arrangements. Moygashel Bonfire Committee has said that the bonfire topper should not be seen as racist, threatening or offensive, and that it is simply expressing disgust at the ongoing crisis that is illegal immigration. Prominent loyalist activist Jamie Bryson defended the display on X, calling it artistic protest and stating that their yearly art has itself become a tradition. Political leaders, however, have strongly condemned the display, with Sinn Féin Assembly member Colm Gildernew calling it absolutely disgusting and fueled by sickening racist and far-right attitudes. Gildernew said, "This is a clear incitement to hatred and must be removed immediately," adding that migrants are our friends, our neighbours, and are welcomed, cherished and valued by the vast majority of people here. Tensions around immigration have been prevalent in Northern Ireland in recent years, with Moygashel itself caught up in controversy in September last year after a road sign was erected reading "No illegal immigrants for 1 mile." The whole incident comes just weeks after violent protests across Northern Ireland related to immigration, after 2 Romanian-speaking teenagers were charged with attempted rape after allegedly sexually assaulting a teenage girl in Ballymena in County Antrim. SDLP leader Claire Hanna also criticised the bonfire, posting on X, "Intricate effigies of human beings for burning, who is this for?" She suggested some involved in the bonfire tradition were motivated by hate, confrontation and media rows. UUP leader Mike Nesbitt posted on social media that it was sickening and entirely out of step with what is supposed to be a cultural celebration. He said, "I condemn it without reservation and urge those responsible to remove it forthwith." The Democratic Unionist Party said bonfires on 11th of July are a historical and cultural tradition stretching back to the fires lit to welcome the arrival of King William III and should be positive cultural celebrations. It said it supported those within our community that wish to celebrate their culture by continuing with that tradition in a peaceful, positive and safe way, but that the placing of flags, effigies or other items on bonfires is not part of that tradition and should not take place. The police service of Northern Ireland confirmed they were aware of an item placed on a bonfire at the Moygashel area and that inquiries are continuing. Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie joined Michelle Dubry on GBNews to discuss the controversial effigy in Moygashel and the community's attitude towards immigration and protest.
For people that are not familiar, first of all, let's just start with what these bonfires are about, the traditions, and then we can get into this particular one because it's caused outrage.
Well, we have celebrations for the 12th of July here in Northern Ireland. That 1690, when we got the Bill of Rights, King James II was deposed, King William and Mary took over the first constitutional and joint monarchy. And really where we are in Britain today is really because of those Bill of Rights. And every 11th night, bonfires like this one behind me will be lit, and they're to signify actually that King William was shot in the arm the night before the Battle of the Boyne, and he had to go around and show his 35,000 men that he was alive, and he did it by the light of a bonfire. And so we have bonfires in Northern Ireland on the 11th. Some are on the 10th night, but those bonfires are very controversial here in Northern Ireland for obvious reason of past sectarian violence, etc. And this particular bonfire, Moygashel, it's down in Tyrone, and every year they have used it to voice their concerns. So last year they had an effigy of a police car on it. The year before that they had an effigy of a boat. Well, they actually had a real boat on top of it, complaining about the Irish sea border. So this year they have decided that, of course, the problem in that area, just 3 weeks ago, we seen 5 nights of vicious rioting in Northern Ireland that cost the Northern Ireland taxpayer £5 million. That's how much it costs for the police operation, £1 million a night, to try and quell that violence. And it still is bubbling under the surface at this moment. So they have decided to take out their frustrations and put an effigy of these immigrants on top of the bonfire. Now, that is wrong. There's no doubt about it. You shouldn't be doing that. But it's no different from Guy Fawkes in a lot of ways, what they're doing. But it is wrong to try and single out one section of the community. But I spoke with some of those leaders in that area by phone just a few moments ago, and they said to me, well, it's art. And if it's good enough for the BBC to allow someone to come on the stage and call for the extermination of the IDF, the BBC shouldn't be. Pearl clutching was what they actually used. And they're not calling for the death of anyone. They're frustrating their worries. They're saying so many Palestinian marches has all sorts of effigies and flags on it. And particularly Colm Gildernew of Sinn Féin, the MLA that's calling this horrendous. Well, Sinn Féin actually backs Kneecap that called for the death of politicians. So all of a sudden, there is nowhere to go with this argument, Michelle. As a journalist, when somebody throws that at you and says, well, it didn't happen to this one, and it didn't happen to that one, and we're not calling for the death of anyone, we're calling for our veterans to be looked after in front of migrants, and if everybody else is doing this sort of thing, why shouldn't we? Where do I go with that argument? And of course, the police force, if they go in to actually remove that from that bonfire, it could cost us another £1 million on another night's rioting.
I mean, the Sinn Féin politician that you mentioned there, he's put a tweet out saying that this is a vile, racist effigy. It must be removed immediately. It's not culture. It's a disgusting act fueled by sickening racist attitudes. He says it's a clear incitement to hatred. He then goes on to say all political leaders must step up, condemn it outright and demand its removal now. Do you think it will be removed?
I don't think it'll be removed, Michelle, and for him to say that, I will bring you back to the argument that was thrown at me. If they put this on top of it, they're claiming it's art, they're claiming it's trying to get their message out, and it's done by the BBC, which are claiming for the deaths of people in Glastonbury. They're saying, well, why wasn't that called for? Why wasn't there uproar at that? And at that point, Michelle, I don't care what side of the population you come from, the minute that the media does not come out and condemn, the minute that the police do not move in on one side or the other, as a journalist, I have to report what I see and what I hear and their argument. I can't argue with their argument because what they're saying, it's wrong, the effigy is wrong, it shouldn't be there. But what they're saying is completely correct. Why would they be picked upon and others wouldn't? And that's where the argument stops, and that's where political voices, by not claiming together and by the media not reporting on the same levels, we have got to the state that we're in. I mean, I sat and thought about the amount of times I've been in London, Michelle, and seen Palestinian flags. Some of them even had effigy or had pictures of Nigel Farage on them. I mean, where do we go with this? This is freedom of speech, and then it is, of course, the right to express yourself. And if you're not going to put that across the whole community, then this is exactly what's going to happen.
Interesting stuff. I've got to say, I'm sure if the BBC was here, they'd say, oh, you know, it was a mistake. We've said sorry, we've apologised. We say we're not going to stream any of that stuff live and so on and so forth. But interesting stuff. We shall watch proceedings with interest for now. Dougie Beattie, thank you very much for that.